Hi, I'm Alfonso Muchacho, and today I'm going to show you how to make this pad sound. Now, if you're anything like me, you'll go weak at the knees for a big, lush pad, especially when it's dropped into a track at just the right time. They can really bring a huge feeling of emotion, like almost nothing else can in electronic music. But because they can sound so thick and huge, you can convince yourself that they must be really complex to make, and you'd have no clue how to make them. Well, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. Let Muchacho show you just how simple pads can be. Here we have my trusty favourite soft synth, Diva. Other soft synths are available. In fact, most VST instruments should be capable of making these sounds. They're not complex at all. So as I've been making music for a few years now, I've noticed that the basis for most sounds tend to be the same. Realistically, most subtractive synthesis is derived from either a saw, triangle, square, or sine wave. The difference tends to be in the envelope settings and effects. Here is no different. A good starting point for making a pad is to initially go with a triangle wave. This tends to be more of a pure tone than a saw, but with more harmonics than a sine. I'm going to begin with the mini poly patch. So let's dial up this triangle wave all the way, and then we're going to mix it in with a saw wave here at about half volume, just to give it a bit of thickness, as I feel whilst we're trying to keep this as simple as possible, a single triangle wave might sound a bit too thin. Next up, we'll add a very small amount of noise, dialing this to about 17, just to give it a little bit more thickness. The filter section is going to be fairly straightforward as well. We'll want to set it to 12 dB per octave, and we'll have the frequency around about 59. As I mentioned earlier, all the magic comes from the envelopes, so let's set the filter mod from envelope 2 to its maximum setting. This will help create a smooth evolving sound as the filter opens gradually with our envelopes. So as you can hear, we're nowhere near our final sound. The patch sounds how you might expect. It's just an uninspiring combination of a saw and a triangle. But let's dig deeper into the envelopes and get this moving. So we're going to change both the amplitude and the filter envelopes to the analog setting, and then we'll dial in the first attack to around about 34. This will cause the sound to fade in gradually. The decay will set to around 50 and the sustain to about 65. As with most pads, we'll want a fairly long release setting, so let's dial that up to around 69-ish. Finally, we'll move the velocity sensitivity to around about 33. Let's take a listen to that. So you can hear the gradual fade of the sound begin to take effect, but this will be far more prominent once we get the filter envelope set up. Here we'll go for an even more extreme setting. Let's dial the attack up to about 69, meaning it'll take a relatively long time for the filter to open up. We'll have the decay at around about the same time also. I'm going to make sure that the sustain is at 0, as we really don't want the filter stationary. Pads require movement to stop them sounding boring, and we'll ensure that doesn't happen by moving the release to about 70. Again, I'll add a bit of velocity sensitivity, so that's around about 28. Now let's take a listen to our pad. Okay, we're really getting there now. You'll be pleased to hear that we don't need to set up any complex LFO routings or anything like that. We're pretty much at the finished sound already. You see, I told you pads could be simple. You could go in and set an LFO with a really slow rate to mod the filter, for example. This would help bring variety and a little randomness to the sound, but honestly, in the interests of keeping this as simple as possible, I don't think we need it. What we could do with is some effects though. Let's have a look. As we're talking about width and wobble, I'm going to turn on the chorus effect. turning the rate up to about 70% of the way and then lowering the depth down to around the 12 setting. This will have a subtle but noticeable effect on the sound. Let's take a listen. Okay, the next effect is going to be the plate 2 reverb. We're going big here, dialing the wet control to maximum. Let's set the pre-delay to about 70 and turn the dampening knob to 40-ish, and let's give the decay knob a bit of a boost too. Now let's take a listen to our pad. Sounding big. So I'm going to build a bit of a track around this and just show you how huge a simple pad like this can sound. Well, I hope you found this useful. Don't be overwhelmed by the complexity of pads. A lot of the time they're fairly simple. Don't just reach for presets. Try building your own, and if you find a preset you like, reverse engineer it. I really believe this is the best way to understand how it was made and build it from the ground up on your own. This will help you learn the basics of how to create this big complex sounds. Let me know down in the comments what your favourite pad sounds are.